Namaste everybody. And as I come from Gujarat, I always say Jai Shri Krishna. I am sitting and talking simply because I can't stand. And I can't stand because of my age. I am 82 years old. So, I've been coming to this World HRD Congress for the last 20 years. I might have missed one or two, but for 20 years I have come here. And every time I come, I call Raju and say, tell me, what do you want me to speak on? He says, I'll tell you, I'll tell you, I'll tell you. And when I come here, he says, speak on whatever you like. So I'm going to speak on issues of mental health, which are very much dominating and concerning me, because they have become the, as I see, read in the newspapers, every few weeks there is a death of a student. A student has committed suicide in IIM, in IIT, all these big institutions. And these students are not poor students or poor in studies or coming from very poor backgrounds. Recently, the student who committed suicide in IIM was coming from a very affluent family. He was 7th rank holder and he committed suicide. So I went a bit deeper and I said, what really happened? He just could not take the stress of how the administrator treated him. He could not, they had a function and I think something happened and the administrator didn't treat him properly, so he committed suicide. In PDEU, a girl committed suicide because she could not manage the pressure. And PDEU is not a pressure driving university, but that happened. IIT, every year I'm told there is a suicide. So it has been bothering me for a very long time, and I'm trying to do some work of why is it happening and what is happening in our society that these students, young people, want to give up their life. So let me go by 3 categories. One are the young people, and that reminds me, there was an 8-year-old girl who committed suicide. An 8-year-old girl to think of doing suicide and drinking something which she knew was dangerous really bothered me. I was absolutely angry at the schools and the colleges and says, what should I be doing or what should I be finding out to take care of all this? Now, schools and colleges keep counselors. Counselors don't help, because counselors deal it as a problem to solve. And it is not a problem to solve. It is first issue to understand. Understand what is happening in the larger society and larger families, context of the families and at work. And it is not that it is only happening in schools and colleges, it is also happening at work. So I will connect all these 3 and say how it builds on and where it can be taken. The address cannot be by a counselor. The counselor cannot address this because there are few thousand students and a few hundred employees. You cannot go one by one. You have to find out a holistic, collective ways of handling this. Now in these schools I have found, when I started FLAME, this was bothering me. How do I create an environment in FLAME where students will tell us what is happening to them? And we are available and open to listening to whatever they have to say. However silly it may sound, we must give time. So what I did was I designed 3 things sequentially to take care of this. One, at the induction time, I said last 3 days, when the induction was being designed by the deans, I said, give me last 3 days. And in the last 3 days, I had a 3-day session, 15 sessions, 5 sessions a day, and identified 6 major themes which these students need to talk about. The first was the transition from home to the residential campus. What does it mean to them? To them it meant freedom, freedom from the parents, freedom from all the do's and the don'ts and the shoulds and the should nots. And we had to really sit down and tell them that there are always norms, shoulds and should nots available, any system you go in. So if you think you can do anything you like, whenever you like, as you like, miss classes as you like, is not going to happen. There is going to be a whole lot of discipline to manage your life and to understand your life. This is a residential school which gives you freedom from the parents, but there are norms, there are rules, there are regulations which you have to follow. And over a period of time, small things used to happen, and they used to come to me. I'll give you one example. There was a boy who broke a light because he could not manage his anger. So he broke a light and said, "Ma'am, the light is 5 rupees and you are charging me 5,000 rupees. So I said, "Yes, I'm charging you 5,000 rupees because I'm managing an institution and not you. Your parents will say, okay, it's a 5 rupee ka bulb hai, so we'll change it." I said, "Look, why don't you come to my side?" So I literally called him and made him stand by me. And I said, "Now you are managing the whole institution. If you alone break one bulb, and if 50 students out of anger break 50 bulbs, then the whole problem is with the institution. And they have to go and change the bulb, they have to go and do this, they have to go and do that. You people will suffer. Classes won't begin on time because there is no light." So finally he stood up, came back right on the opposite side of me, gave me a big mighty smile and said, "Ma'am, I can't beat an argument with you. So thank you very much, I understand." And he paid and I said, "You are afraid of paying 5,000 because you have to ask your parents. And your parents will ask you, why did you do that? And I am telling you, you cannot do that in an institution where there are lots of other people studying. You have to learn to manage your anger. And anger is something with your friends. You need to manage it, control it, contain it, and understand it." So these are the kind of events which happen in educational institutions, and there is nobody to listen to. Sometimes there are little silly things which happen, and I'm surprised that they don't have places to go, they can't talk to. Even if you have a counselor, they will not go to a counselor because there is a stigma attached to it. So one day one girl came and stood in front of me, and kept standing. And I said, "What do you want? What do you want to tell me?" She says, "Ma'am, can I come across the table and come near you?" I said, "Yes, you can come." She came and held my hand and said, "Ma'am, can I sit down?" I said, "Yes." So she knelt down. "Ma'am, can I put my head on your knees?" I said, "Yes, you can put your head on my knees." She put her head on my knees and started to cry. Then she says, "Ma'am, let me cry. I'm okay." She cried for about 7 to 10 minutes, then got up, gave me a big smile, a hug, and went away. I said, "But what was the matter with you?" "Oh, ma'am, I was feeling so sad. Now I'm not feeling so sad. And because I have come and talked to you." See, there are so many small incidents which a teacher has to pick up, and the environment of the institution has to be such that they can go to anybody. See, our joint families had this issue very nicely laid out. And the child could go to anybody and complain about the parents. And then whatever the child had got out of its head, and it was fine. Everything was okay. But now, because it has become a lonely society, children have become lonely, and they have nobody to go to. Even if they can go to, they don't know what they are saying is meaningful or relevant or irrelevant. I'll give you my family example. We were in a marriage in Dubai. My cousins, some family member was getting married. And as I came going to the marriage hall, I saw my nephew, a 14-year-old boy, coming from Singapore to Dubai to attend the marriage, was just sitting and he was brooding. I know his head had frowns on his head and was kind of mumbling something. So I asked him what happened. He said, no, no, Masi, you go to the marriage. I said, no, I'm going to sit with you and you have to tell me what happened to you. He spoke for 1.5 hours. Everybody went by to the marriage. Both of us kept sitting there. And he kept on saying, Masi, you go to the marriage. I said, no, I will sit with you as long as you talk. 1.5 hours he talked of his loneliness, talked of his isolation, being in Singapore. All people are different. He was a heavy built boy. He grew up to be 6 feet 5 inches or something. So he was already a huge boy. And then the people were in Singapore, they are not as tall as 6 feet 5 or something. So he says, Masi, I feel so different and so huge. I am a giant in front of them. And then he had lots of things to say. So I told my cousin, after all this, I for 1.5 hours listened to him. Then he was feeling very comfortable. He said, Chalo Masi, we'll go to the marriage. So both of us went to attend the marriage. Then I called my sister. She was working and doing some excellent work, passionate about whatever she was doing. I said, see, take 6 weeks off and take your son and go out somewhere and spend time with him. 6 weeks completely you devote to him. And of course my sister is younger one, is a kid sister, so she said, okay, I will do that. And she took him to Leh and Ladakh and they went on a journey, driving all over the place for 6 weeks, staying in the communities there. And more than that, they picked up a stray dog and adopted him, looked after him for 6 weeks and finally gave it away to the driver's mother. But those 6 weeks transformed the child. Now, this, otherwise it would have led to really serious problems. And mental health problems are more based on family conflicts, family issues, parents fighting, ending up in a divorce, or living with a single parent. They still believe that it is their fault that this happened. See, first of all, the child does not differentiate that his parents are husband and wife. And therefore, two people can have problems. They think parents means parents. They are my parents. That's it. They have a lot of issues which they cannot say to anybody. And earlier, they eat at the same table, but every single person has a mobile on the hand. And they are fiddling with their mobile. And as you've seen many places, right from age 1 or 2, the child is handed a mobile while eating. So the child is used to eating with a mobile on his hand. As he grows up or as she grows up, she does not talk to anybody. She has a mobile on the phone. So there is no conversation taking place between the family, between the parents and the children. It's all about mobiles, and technology is very, very good. Mobile is good because a parent feels safe that the child has a mobile and can anytime get in touch. And it has happened many times in the US that there was a gunman in the school and my grandson called my son and said, there is a gunman in the school and we are sitting under the table. For 2 hours they sat under the table. And then of course the parents, only in America 2 parents came around hearing that on the news. One was my son and one was another lady. All the parents thought that school will take care of them. They did not go to the school. Like our parents will go mad if they heard this and run to the school. But in America only 2 parents went. One was my son and one was another lady. And when my grandson came out, the minute he saw his father, he ran, hugged him and started crying. 2 hours under the table with the gunmen roaming around is not such a thing for a child to take. So all these things are happening with the technology around, good things and bad things. But basically we've lost out on the conversation, and with that a lot of mental health issues come, like management of anger, like wetting the bed, like arrogance with the teachers, arrogance with the authority. They think the authority don't know how to handle children. Like I've heard from many young people, parents don't know how to take care of us. Parents don't know how to handle us. We hardly have a conversation. I can't go to my parents to talk. I can't go to my mother to talk. My mother is only interested in how much food I eat, and that I don't go hungry. But she is really not aware of what is happening in my head and what is happening in my heart. That is the young people's, even until 14, 15, 16. And I keep telling parents, your 14-year-old argues with you, argue with them. Argue as much as you can, but when you argue, talk about your values, talk about the family values. Because the child does not know any other explanation of what the friends are telling him. So if you argue with him, the same argument he gives to his friends. So you must talk to your children, argue, even if it becomes loud argument, it is all right. There is nothing wrong in that. Because the child is picking up how to handle people who tell him different things than what he believes in. And if you argue or if you talk your values, then he has something to hold on to. That is my one. Now, what happens as the child grows, goes to, of course, there is one common theme which affects everybody is the pressure of studies. Study, study, study. So you ask them to study, don't let them go to extended family functions, don't let them go for celebrations because you must study. And you must get these marks, so you must get a good job, you must get a good entrance in another college, and which makes them completely isolated from the entire familial context, the society, the celebrations which goes on. The ears are with the celebrations, the whole band baja baj raha hai, and the eyes are on the books, but nothing gets in. And then the parents say, itna sara padh ke you haven't done well. But they don't realize that this is celebrations break are necessary for a child to be able to come back and focus. But this pressure on getting good grades is getting to be a little more dysfunctional now. And I think the parent should also learn to help him manage his inability to get the best of the marks and help him understand or help her understand rather than getting angry with the child of not getting good marks. Now, as these children grow up as adults and get into work system, here what happens is they don't like the work they are getting. First, the organization is giving them work which is so easy for them, they don't like it. And they get bored. When they get bored, they started talking negative things about the organization. So first of all, they are located in an institution for which they have a negative evaluation. And that gets them to be uninterested, angry inside. And that is also the time for their marriage. So the parents are pressurizing them for marriage. Girls especially, the girls want to work because then they can postpone their marriage for a while. They want a little bit of freedom to earn money and have some money for themselves. But the pressure from the parents is so much sometimes that they get married and then in a few weeks or months there is a divorce. Because they just get married because of the pressure. Rather than arguing every day कि नहीं शादी करनी है, नहीं शादी करनी है, they get married to a person whom the parents have chosen. They think the family is good. But I have seen marriages in 3 years break 3 times. And it is the very disastrous thing for a child to undergo that, no matter how bad a marriage, no matter how uncomfortable a marriage. Breakage is a breakage, and the girl feels, or a boy also feels that it is his responsibility, and they get depressed. That's one reason there is so much depression in the young people between the ages of 20 to 28, because they are doing things which they don't want to do. They are working in places they don't want to work. They don't get a job with what is their passion. And most of the time parents say engineering mein jao, isme jao, technology mein jao. The child is more prepared at doing art, music, painting, or participate in sports. Even the parents don't let them participate in sports because it's waste of time. Now, how does one help in a society to let children give space to actually discover what their calling is, what their passion lies? And you can do that. Then there will be less of a friction, there will be less of a mental health problems, and there will be more cheer in the house. And the home has become so quiet with everybody with their, they don't even go and hug their parents at night to say good night. They go to their room and text message good night. Or they text message good morning when they wake up. Now, if we look at our earlier history of the country, morning when you woke up, or at least in my time, I'm in my 80s, so this would be when I was about 4 or 5. When we woke up, first the parents woke us up. And then say, जाके सबको नमस्ते करो, जाके सबके आशीर्वाद ले आओ. So we really had to go, all the elders, and we lived in a joint family of 22 people. So there were about 8 elders, grandfather, grandmother, uncle, aunt, chacha, chachi, 2 buajis, सबको जाके नमस्ते करो and or get आशीर्वाद. And I remember one day my brother went and said, and my grandfather just patted him. He said, Pitaji, आपने आशीर्वाद नहीं दिया. So it was kind of an expectation that you would get blessings from the parents. And then the mother would sit and feed you, be around and what you were eating and how you were eating. And to drop us to school, they went until the car. The school was very far away. So they would come to the car and put us in the car and say कि अच्छी तरह से पढ़ना आ जाना. Now all these kinds of things have gone. The interaction between the parents at each stage of the life of the child is almost gone. And when we used to come back, the nashta would be ready. And we grew up in Calcutta, so we had a pukur in the house. So the first thing we would go and jump in the pukur, and parents will have to pull us out and say, "Pehle nashta karo, fir pani mein jao." But it was the childhood which we had. I think my son did not have. Neither did his children have. Our childhood was really full of fun, full of laughter, full of joy, full lot of fights because we were 22 children in the house. So always there was a fight. Somebody was fighting with somebody else, and then all of us would get together and make them patch up. Now here, when it happens in the universities or colleges, there is hardly anybody to do it. As I said, when I started this induction program, 3 days I made students share with each other where they came from, which family they came from, what was their family life, what were happy moments, what were sad moments. All these were shared by the students with each other, and in a smaller group where they could talk for about half an hour, 45 minutes. Then the second thing they talked about was, why are we here? Kitna time hai? Time ho gaya? I'll take 5 minutes. This is such a pet topic. Now, then we went through the 3 days of such very intimate conversations and deep conversations that when a child was, when a student was kind of crying all the time, the students would catch it and come and tell us, "Okay, ma'am, that girl is crying too much." So we would go and then talk to her. If the child suddenly became very quiet, the students would tell us. So this was the collective thing which we did for the students. I also did a session with faculty on mentoring, and each faculty had 7 to 8 students to mentor, and we had it structured in the classroom time. So all those 8 students met that faculty. I also had a session with the students, mentees, and said what is their role and what is a mentor's role and what should they talk about, and they should be open, and that helped quite a bit. And the third thing I did was the role and identity lab, where they really took out the deeply internalized pathos of existence, which as they were growing up. And this was meant to help them discover their freedom of spirit, their spontaneity, their enthusiasm. Now, as an adults, when people go and don't have all these inputs, then they are doing repetitive work and therefore get bored. Marriages also have become stabilized. Children have going to school. And there is no spontaneity re-emerging. So organizations need to design renewal programs of life, renewal of life. Time to time, different focus at different ages of the 8 years of work, 15 years of work, 20 years of work. They need to design programs as a group to deal with these issues, because there is a lot of held back emotions which they cannot share with anybody. Also, being elders, they can't share with anybody. Their family problems, the elderly parents are there, illnesses are there of the parents. They are managing this. They are stressed out completely. But they have to keep working, and they do routine work. They need more challenges. They need more opportunities. This have to be understood by doing self-renewal programs. They will know exactly what is happening. Health and well-being of the employees become very important. I think I will stop here with a small story. The story is about an American company. Everything was perfect. The people were given good salaries, people had good homes, people were married, had children, children went to good schools. But this was a colleague of mine in America who did OD work for them. So he was sharing this story with me. But what was happening was that whoever came to work, in 5 years their marriage broke up. They had a divorce. They did not know what was the matter. They did not know what went wrong, but the marriage broke up. He said if everything was right at work, what would he do? So what he did was, he just told the organization, give me a room. So they gave me a room. They gave him a room. And then they told the employees, anybody who wants to talk anything can go to his room. So first 4 days, nobody came. Then people started filtering out of curiosity. Why was he sitting there? Why was he given a room? He has no designation. There was no designation. He was just there. And then they just put, people started coming in and talking to him. Finally, he discovered that everything was right, but the work was so passionately involving in NASA that they forgot their homes. So the divorce started happening because the husband was never around. He left for work early in the morning, very eager to go to work, and coming late at night because the problems they were working on were very interesting. And then they cut down. What the organization did was 5 o'clock the office closes, shut down all the lights, and said everybody has to go home. Now, there are issues like these also. People are involved in work, but it impacts their family. And if they have stress in the family, it would impact that work. So organizations will have to see how do you really manage the equilibrium between home and work so that the work is done well and the family is also sustained. So these are my views on mental health. I'm really concerned about the young children. Now, 2 years old with their mobiles on their hand, what are they going to do when they grow up? Not bad, let them do it, but there should be timings, and the parents need to spend time with the children, talking to the children. Even arguments are fine, but you must talk to the children. And you will find out what is going on in their minds. And in my labs, in IIM even, there were students who says, ma'am, we've never hugged our parents. We've never told our parents that we love them and they have done so much for us. There's just no ability or no openness where they can even say, okay, I love you. After my lab, on the day 3, when all this would come out, we used to be in a place where there was only one phone, a landline, and that too after 11 o'clock it worked. So there would be a line of students waiting outside the phone, telling their parents that, and just telling their parents, I have never told you, but I want to tell you that I love you. And the parents would start trying. And they would have to then manage the parents, and almost each and every student would have to do that. So it's, this is my concern, that institutions need to think of holistic, wholesome designs to manage these problems, and first understand them. So that is my statement to all of you. Thank you for staying. Thank you for listening. God bless you all.